Everything you need to know about Townsend versus Ostapenko? It started with a handshake that turned into a war of words. A net cord that never got an apology. A confrontation that sparked accusations of racism, cultural ignorance, and everything in between. What was supposed to be a routine second-round match at the US Open became one of the most talked-about moments in women's tennis. And the fallout? It was just beginning. August 27, 2025. Court 11 at the US Open, a second-round match that should have been routine. Taylor Townsend, the 29-year-old American and world number 1 in doubles, facing off against Jelena Ostapenko, the fiery Latvian and 25th seed. On paper, it looked like Ostapenko's match to lose. She's a former French Open champion. She's known for her explosive power, her go-for-broke style, and her ability to dismantle opponents when she's locked in. And for the first 30 minutes, that's exactly what happened. Ostapenko came out redlining. Every shot was a missile. Every swing had intent. Townsend couldn't touch her. The crowd watched as Ostapenko surged ahead, building momentum, painting lines and making it look easy. It was the kind of tennis that reminds you why she's dangerous when she's on. But tennis is a game of momentum, and momentum doesn't last forever. Townsend started to find her rhythm. She began reading Ostapenko's patterns, anticipating the aggression, and turning defense into offense. Slowly, the tide began to shift. Ostapenko's shots, once so precise, started spraying wide. Her energy, once so electric, began to sputter. And then came the moment that would change everything. Late in the first set, with the score tied at 5-all, Ostapenko prepared to move into the net. Townsend fired a ground stroke that clipped the top of the net. The ball looped high into the air, forcing Ostapenko into a desperate scramble. She barely managed to shovel it back over. Townsend, stunned that the ball even went over, had the easiest of putaways. She finished the point. The crowd erupted. But Ostapenko? She didn't forget. Townsend rode that momentum all the way to the finish line. She took the first set 7-5. Then she steamrolled through the second, winning 6-1. It was a complete turnaround. A dominant performance. A statement victory for the American. But the story didn't end with the scoreboard. Because at the net, where players are supposed to shake hands and move on, something exploded. The crowd's cheers turned to boos. Voices were raised. Fingers were pointed. And what should have been a routine handshake became a viral moment that would dominate tennis headlines for days. But what was said at that net? And why did a single lucky shot turn into a full-blown controversy? Let's break it down. The footage spread like wildfire. Townsend and Ostapenko at the net, voices sharp, body language tense. The crowd booing. Ostapenko pointing her finger repeatedly at Townsend. And words, harsh, cutting words, being exchanged. In her on-court interview moments later, Townsend didn't hold back. She revealed exactly what was said. According to Townsend, Ostapenko told her she had no class and no education. 3 times, Ostapenko appeared to use the word education, and then came the threat. Ostapenko reportedly told Townsend to see what happens when they get outside the United States. It was aggressive. It was personal. And it was shocking. Townsend's response? Cool, collected, and confident. She said people get upset when they lose. Some people say bad things, but she wasn't fazed. In fact, she pointed out that she'd already beaten Ostapenko in Canada, outside the US, and had just beaten her in New York, inside the US. So she was looking forward to seeing what else Ostapenko had to say. The crowd loved it. Townsend showed class even when she was being insulted. She didn't back down. She didn't shrink. She stood her ground and made it clear that she wouldn't be disrespected on her home court or anywhere else. But the tennis world wasn't just impressed by Townsend's composure. They were outraged by Ostapenko's words. Because saying someone has no education, especially to a black woman in a predominantly white sport, carries weight. It carries history. And it sparked a conversation that went far beyond tennis etiquette. Ostapenko quickly went to social media to defend herself. She posted on Instagram, explaining that she told Townsend she was very disrespectful because she had a net ball in a very deciding moment and didn't say sorry. Townsend's answer, according to Ostapenko, was that she didn't have to say sorry at all. Ostapenko wrote that there are some rules in tennis which most players follow, and that this was the first time ever that this had happened to her on tour. She added that just because Townsend plays in her homeland doesn't mean she can behave and do whatever she wants. But here's the thing. Apologizing for a net cord isn't a rule. It's not in the official tennis code of conduct. It's an unwritten tradition, a gesture of sportsmanship that some players follow and some don't. And Townsend? She never felt the need to apologize. She later said she was honestly shocked it was a net cord because she was ready to play the point. There was no intent. No disrespect. Just tennis. But for Ostapenko, that lack of apology was enough to ignite a firestorm. So why does a net cord apology matter so much? And is it really worth all this drama? Let's dive into the unwritten rules that sparked this whole mess. The net cord. It's one of the strangest, most debated traditions in tennis. When a player hits a shot that clips the top of the net and still goes over, landing in their opponent's court, it's common practice to raise a hand in a quick apology. It's a gesture that says, I didn't mean for that to happen. I got lucky. Sorry about that. But here's the catch. It's not a rule. It's not enforced. And not everyone does it. In fact, the USTA doesn't even list the net cord apology in its code of conduct. There's no official guideline that says you must apologize. It's purely a matter of personal etiquette. And yet, for some players, it's sacred. Mats Wilander, a 7-time Grand Slam champion, said most players did it back in his day. But a quick scroll through tennis history will show you plenty of examples where players didn't apologize and no one batted an eye. So why did Ostapenko react the way she did? Maybe because unwritten rules cut deeper than official ones. Maybe because in the heat of defeat, every little slight feels like disrespect. Or maybe because Ostapenko has always played with fire in her veins, and Townsend's silence was gasoline. Whatever the reason, the moment overshadowed the match and ignited a broader conversation. Is the net cord apology meaningful respect or meaningless habit? Other players have weighed in on this debate before. At Wimbledon, Aryna Sabalenka admitted she was pissed off when Amanda Anisimova didn't apologize for a net cord, instead choosing to celebrate the point. Sabalenka said she was like, "You don't want to say sorry?" She just wanted to win the match badly. That's on her. Back in 2007, Rafael Nadal criticized Robin Soderling for fist-pumping instead of apologizing for a net cord winner. Soderling's reply was honest and unapologetic. He said, "Why should I say I'm sorry when it's the happiest moment of my life?" The truth is, tennis is full of these unwritten expectations. Some players follow them religiously. Others reject them entirely. Jenson Brooksby, an American player, showed up on the Pro Tour without apologizing for net cords because that's how he was taught. He said he was taught it's not really luck-based. And he's right. Think about everything a player has to do to be in position to hit that ball. The footwork, the positioning, the spin, the power. There's skill involved, not just luck. But try telling that to someone who just lost a crucial point because of a net cord. For Townsend, the net cord wasn't even on her radar. She was focused on winning the match. She was in the zone. And when that ball clipped the net, she didn't think twice about it. But for Ostapenko, it was everything. It was the spark that lit the fuse. And once that fuse was lit, there was no putting it out. But the story didn't stop at tennis etiquette. Because when words like no education are thrown at a black woman in a predominantly white sport, it becomes about so much more than a net cord. Let's talk about what those words really mean. The phrase no education might sound like a comment about manners to some. But to others, especially in the black community, it carries a much darker history. For centuries, black people have been stereotyped as uneducated, uncivilized, and inferior. These words have been used to justify discrimination, exclusion, and violence. So when Ostapenko told Townsend she had no education, it didn't just sting. It cut deep. And the tennis world took notice. Naomi Osaka, a 4-time Grand Slam champion and one of the most prominent voices in tennis, spoke out in defense of Townsend. She called the comment one of the worst things you can say to a black tennis player in a majority white sport. Osaka made it clear that she knows Townsend personally, knows how hard she's worked, and knows how smart she is. She said Townsend is the furthest thing from uneducated or anything like that. But Osaka also pointed out that this wasn't the first time Ostapenko had said something controversial. She admitted she didn't think it was the craziest thing Ostapenko had ever said, but it was ill-timed and said to the worst person she could have ever said it to. Osaka added that she doesn't know if Ostapenko knows the history of those words in America, but she's certain Ostapenko will never say that ever again in her life. Coco Gauff, another rising star in American tennis, also came to Townsend's defense. Gauff said Townsend is one of the nicest people she knows. The support was overwhelming. Players, fans, and commentators rallied around Townsend, acknowledging the cultural weight of Ostapenko's words. In a press conference, Townsend was asked if she thought there were racial undertones to Ostapenko's comments. She said she didn't take it that way initially, but she acknowledged that the phrase "no education" has been a stigma in the Black community. She said, "That has been a stigma in our community of being not educated and all of the things, when it's the furthest thing from the truth." Townsend also addressed the broader issue of expectations. She said sometimes people of color are expected to be silenced. Sometimes they have to decide when to speak up and when to stay quiet. But in moments like these, Townsend said, it's important for her to speak up. Not only for herself, but for her culture. She made it clear that she wouldn't back down because Ostapenko wasn't going to insult her, especially on her home court, in front of her people. The incident sparked a larger conversation about race, representation, and respect in tennis. It reminded everyone that words matter, context matters, and history matters. Townsend handled the situation with grace and strength, but she didn't let it slide. She made sure her voice was heard. And in doing so, she became a spokesperson for something much bigger than a tennis match. But would Ostapenko apologize? Or would she double down? Let's see how she responded to the backlash. 3 days after the confrontation, Ostapenko posted an apology on her Instagram story. But it wasn't addressed to Townsend directly. It didn't even mention her by name. The statement was carefully worded, almost defensive. Ostapenko wrote, "I wanted to apologize for some of the things I said during my second-round singles match. English is not my native language, so when I said education, I was speaking only about what I believe as tennis etiquette. But I understand how the words I used could have offended many people beyond the tennis court." She ended the post by saying she appreciates the support as she continues to learn and grow as a person and a tennis player. Then she said goodbye to New York and that she looks forward to being back next year. It was an apology, sure. But was it genuine? Was it enough? The language barrier excuse didn't sit well with everyone. Critics pointed out that Ostapenko has been on the tour for years. She's done countless interviews in English. She knows the language well enough to compete, communicate, and navigate the tennis world. So why use it as an excuse now? Townsend didn't hear about the apology right away. In fact, when reporters asked her about it after her doubles win that same day, she had no idea Ostapenko had even posted anything. She said, the fact of the matter is, like I said the other day, I'm still playing, so I don't have time to be tapped in on what she's got going on and what she says." Townsend made it clear that her focus was on her tennis, not on Ostapenko's social media activity. She added that keeping the main thing was her priority, and anything that got in the way of that had to go. When reporters read Ostapenko's apology to her, Townsend smiled. She said, "That's nice that she did that she apologized. That's fine. That's cool." But then she added something important. She said, "At the end of the day, I think that it's a learning lesson for her. You cannot push your expectations on other people." That's ultimately what happened. Townsend explained that Ostapenko expected her to react a certain way, and when she didn't, it infuriated Ostapenko. That fury led her to say things that are hurtful, belligerent, and offensive. Not only to Townsend, but to the sport, and to a whole culture of people she tries to represent the best she can. Townsend said she really hopes Ostapenko can take away one thing from this experience: that you can't control people, and it's better just to focus on yourself. It was a mature, measured response. Townsend didn't trash Ostapenko. She didn't demand a personal apology. She simply made it clear that words have consequences, and growth requires accountability. Whether Ostapenko truly understood that lesson remains to be seen. But here's the thing. While Ostapenko was apologizing online, Townsend was winning matches. Let's talk about who really came out on top. While the drama was unfolding off the court, Townsend was making moves on it. Just 2 days after the Ostapenko confrontation, she stunned fifth seed Mira Andreeva in straight sets, winning 7-5, 6-2. It was her second major upset of the tournament, and it sent her into the fourth round of the US Open for the first time since 2019. The crowd was behind her. The momentum was with her. And the support? It was overwhelming. Townsend gained thousands of new followers on social media. Messages poured in from friends, fellow players, and fans around the world. She became more than just a tennis player. She became a symbol of grace under pressure, of standing up for yourself without losing your composure. She proved that you can defend your dignity without stooping to someone else's level. And she did it all while continuing to win matches. Ostapenko, on the other hand, exited the tournament entirely. She lost her doubles match and cited medical reasons for skipping a requested press conference. For many, her early exit felt like poetic justice. She came into the US Open as a seeded player with expectations, and she left in controversy, with her reputation damaged and her apology questioned. Some fans saw it as karma. Others saw it as a learning moment that she might or might not take seriously. The incident also revealed something important about tennis culture. Unwritten rules can be powerful, but they can also be divisive. The net court apology tradition is rooted in sportsmanship, but it's not universal. Some players see it as respect, others see it as unnecessary, and when those expectations clash, things can get ugly. The question is, should players be held to unwritten standards that not everyone agrees on? Or should tennis move toward a more explicit, codified set of rules that everyone can follow? Townsend's handling of the situation showed that you don't have to conform to everyone's expectations to have class. She played her game, stayed true to herself, and let her results do the talking. Meanwhile, Ostapenko's reaction showed that imposing your expectations on others can backfire spectacularly. The lesson? Control what you can control. Focus on your own game. And don't let someone else's failure to meet your standards dictate how you treat them. As Townsend moved deeper into the tournament, her story became about more than just tennis. It became about representation, respect, and resilience. She showed young Black girls that they can compete at the highest level and demand to be treated with dignity. She showed the tennis world that silence isn't always the answer, and that speaking up for yourself doesn't make you the villain. And she showed everyone watching that the best revenge isn't words. It's winning. So, everything you need to know about Townsend versus Ostapenko? It was never really about a net cord. It was about expectations, respect, and the words we choose when emotions run high. Ostapenko expected an apology. Townsend didn't think she owed one.